am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today, I have my special guest. He is award-winning author and, of course, best-selling author too. No other than Mr. J. Edwards Holt.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back, Mr. Holt. Thank you for your time. And can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm J. Edwards Holt. I'm an author of fantasy fiction. Most of my work is in the young adult category, but also have a couple of books for children, as well as a teen comic and a coloring book. And aside from writing in the fantasy genre, I also write a little bit in the religious realm, and I write regularly for a health and wellness magazine.
Yes, indeed. And last week we talked about your most popular book, Sparrow Songbird. Let's do the recap.
Yeah, last week we talked about Sparrow Songbird. It's a free short story that's available across um, many platforms. Pretty much anywhere you can find ebooks, you can download it for free. It's a short story. It's meant to lead people to my book of short stories, which is a whole lot longer with a lot more stories. And the purpose of Sparrow Songbird, one of its purposes, is to lead people to that book, which is called The Storyteller's Diary. And that book is also available on Amazon. And um, with Sparrow Songbird, anybody can download that at any time for free, whether you have Kindle or your iPhone or Android or your computer, whatever you want to download it on, you can download it for completely for free.
Yes, people, you are interested. Of our episode last week, we talked about Sparrow Songbird, how Mr. Holt crafted it, struggles, and a lot more. So, Mr. Holt, what novel of yours we gonna talk about today?
Little Men, Big Treasures.
Sounds interesting. So, Little Man, Big Treasure, Volume 1?
Yep, that's right. Volume one.
Okay, what behind the title of your novel?
So, Little Men, Big Treasures is it's called such because it's about dwarves. It's about a group of dwarves that go hunting for you know, big treasures and lots of treasures that are worth a whole lot of money. And as dwarves, they are little men. Um, and when I say dwarves, I talk about from kind of like Tolkien does with dwarves, or Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And the book is basically, it's the first in a series of three books that's about dwarves and the different adventures they come across in their home, which is the mountain realm. And there's a lot of action, a lot of emotion, a lot of laughs. You know, there's a lot of growing and lessons to be learned as well in that book, as well as the other two.
How did you craft it, Little Man?
Well, Little Men actually started as a prequel to another trilogy I have called Barren World. Um, I had always thought of this story about Barren World, and when I decided to publish my first book, I felt like I wasn't ready to write the big story yet. So I started with um, Little Men, Big Treasures, which was going to be a prequel to it. And, I wrote that one. And after the good reception to it, I decided to go ahead and make a couple of sequels to Little Men.
Sounds interesting, people. Little Man, where did you get the idea?
Well, for the story I was working on with Barren World, there was always going to be a couple of dwarf characters in it that were kind of tagging along with the adventure, and I decided to start with a prequel about kind of the origin of those dwarf characters. And I just, came up with a story about, them going around and hunting for treasure. And it, it eventually turned into a whole book. And yeah, it turned into a whole book. I wasn't expecting that. And into a trilogy too. And I wasn't expecting that.
Wow. How many days or month you wrote this book?
Um, it took me about a year, I would say, about a year.
So if you want to go back and revise the book itself, which part of the book you want to revise?
Um, there may be some things I would have added in. Pretty much anytime I look at my past work, I think of things I could have done better. But I think that's what all of us writers do. It's kind of hard sometimes to read your past work because you're always so critical of yourself, and you start to think, well, you know what, I could have worded this a little better, or I could have put this here. Um, but thankfully, when other people read it, they read it to enjoy it, and they don't critique it as much as we do our own work. But you know, with any of my books, I would say, if I look back at them, there's always something I'm thinking I could tweak. Hmm.
Yes. So, Little Man, which chapter did you enjoy the most?
I really enjoyed the beginning, just kind of introducing everybody to the universe and to the dwarf characters and their home in the mountain realm, and spending the first few kind of chapters kind of just showcasing their daily adventures, and yeah, their bond and friendship before they ended up going on their big adventure. And I think a lot of people enjoy that introduction as well. It's meant to be lighthearted and fun, before the more intense and serious parts of the book. It showcases, I think, a more a lighter tone as far as the dwarfs go, and um, it was fun writing um, all of it, but especially that part with the introduction.
What are your struggles in writing Little Man? Big treasures.
It was particularly difficult. It was my first book, so the first book I ever published. So I was so new to the game. I didn't really know much about it. I knew how to write a story, but I didn't really know where I was going with it. And so it, once I had gotten most of it written down, it took a while for me to decide, what to really do with it and what direction I was going. And just the challenges of being a first time author. Then it was really really scary and intimidating, and I had no idea where it was going to go. So it was a lot more intimidating than any of the other books I've written.
What did you learn from your debut novel, Little Man, Big Treasures?
Um, well, I learned a lot. I learned um, a lot more about crafting a story and character development, and I learned kind of the ins and outs um, of first time publishing. I learned how to I learned everything about copyrights and cover design and formatting books, and it was a lot to learn in a relatively short time. But as I've done more books, I've gotten more familiar with the process and learned some lessons along the way. So I think it's a good thing. Basically, I found a graphic designer that did cover designs, and I described to them what I wanted the cover to look like and what the text was going to say, and they put it together for me.
That's awesome. Really awesome. The Little Man uh, cover of the book. Before we go on, Mr. Holt, I want to shout out to the people listening in Chile. Thank you, Chile, for supporting this podcast in Santiago Metropolitan. I got 86% audience share. Region de Valparaiso at 7%, and Antofagasta at 7%. Thank you, Chile, for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. J. Edwards Holt. Little Man Big Treasures was the best highlight.
I think one of the great things about it I've learned over the years of it being on the market is that it's kind of one of those books. Most of mine are, but especially that one. It really it appeals to adults and children. I've had several adults that read it of different ages and enjoyed it, and then I've had um, a younger audience that enjoyed it as well. As young as um, I guess 10 or 11. And it just surprised me the wide variety of people that it appeals to. And so, I would suggest it whether if you got a kid that likes to read, or if you enjoy fantasy yourself. I would encourage anybody to get it, no matter your age. Um, I think it's got something for everybody to enjoy.
Definitely. So, what are the elements that you put in the novel that make your readers glued to it?
Yeah, I'm very vivid with my descriptions. I try to paint a picture in the reader's mind to kind of to bring them in and see what I'm seeing. And I don't spend a great deal of time. I don't waste any time with unnecessary details. I've been told that the story moves along at a pace that keeps people interested and doesn't bore them. And aside from that, I always try to put valuable life lessons in these books. And Little Men, Big Treasures, like most of the books, it stresses the importance of family and friendship. And then this book in particular kind of addresses the dangers of greed, and how if we're not careful, we can let love of our possessions get the best of us. And this book kind of showcases that for people. And um, I just think it's something people enjoy overall.
Indeed, Mr. Holt. So, let's talk about the main character of Little Man Big Treasures.
Yeah, the main character is a dwarf named O'Balin. He's on the younger side. He's about I think he's about 28 or 29. He's a treasure hunter, and he's been a treasure hunter for most of his life. And he and his best friend Bindle love to go out and hunt for treasure, and they like to get into different shenanigans, and they like to play pranks on their fellow villagers and all kinds of things like that. And um, in contrast to those two characters who like to have fun, there's Obalin's brother, who is a dwarf named Clan, and um, he's not so much into having fun. He thinks that the other two are immature, and he's kind of he's kind of the opposite of them, and so it makes for an interesting um, dynamic with the two that don't take everything seriously, um, spending a lot of time with one that does. And but the main character Obalin, he's very determined, he's very focused, and he's all about hunting the treasure. And um, one of his flaws is that he's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. And um, in most cases that's a good thing, but in some cases it can be a downfall.
How would you balance in The Little Man Big Treasure the villain and the main character?
Let's see. The villain is basically the villain is a troll. His name is Traxel. He's the one that has stolen the treasure that they're looking for. And it's just a kind of you know two characters that really kind of despise each other, and they're the dwarves and the trolls don't get along, and so there's there's dynamic there. It's not really good and evil, but just kind of two opposing forces against each other, I would say.
Okay, so all your novels, are you the writer that you give importance to the villain first and then heroes?
Yeah, well, um, some of the books I like to focus on the villain too. I like to give the villain their own kind of story and give them their time in the spotlight and focus on why they're doing what they're doing. You know, uh, some of the villains are fun to write. It's fun to write the villain sometimes. So it just
Yeah.
depends on the book whether or not I um, focus more on the villain or the hero.
Yes, it depends to the story and how you relate it, right? Okay, Mr. Holt, before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Geography 101, on my third season. Geography 101 is all about the places that I visited from Europe, Caribbean, North America, South America, Asia, and a lot more. So please do listen, Geography 101. Plus one more, please do grab a copy of my Food 101, Volume 1 to Volume 7. It's all about people, my 100 episodes of my podcast, Food 101, with Chef Alessandro. And those volumes are available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So please do grab your copy and listen to my other podcasts. So, Mr. Holt, as your debut novel, do you think the flaws?
The flaws of it.
Yes.
That's an interesting question. Hmm. Well, I haven't received much negative feedback on it. Um, so I'm not really sure. I guess I was less experienced when I wrote it. I guess that could be a flaw. I think I've learned a lot since I wrote it. Um, and I guess if I wrote it today, it might be, I guess, a little more polished. But it was written when I was first starting out. But I guess that's true with most authors. I guess hopefully we improve as we write along. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of things we would change. In that regard.
Indeed. So, can you share to us one of your mistakes that you did of our Little Man Big Treasures?
Well, one mistake was the first publisher that I was going with was basically they sent me. They said, "Hey, we're interested in publishing your book and this and that and the other," and I didn't do enough research on them, and I went to publish with them, and they ended up charging me quite a bit of money, and then they disappeared. So I was out of quite a bit of money in that regard, which seemed bad at the time, but then later on, I found out how to go about publishing myself, and that allowed me to make a lot more changes that I wanted, and to um, just have more creative freedom and maintain rights and all that stuff. So um, basically, I would have gone a different route with publishing. Basically, is what I would have done differently.
So, do you think that mistake make you Perfect or progress?
Yeah, I think mistakes, definitely teach us, how to become better. I wouldn't say perfect, but definitely mistakes can cause progress and growth.
Indeed, Mr. Holt, but I'm sure that those mistakes lead you to better and better in the future. So people, we encourage you to do mistake because that's make you better. Not perfect, as Mr. Holt said, make you in the progress. That Little Man Big Treasures, is it good for a series or a motion picture?
I think so. Yeah, I've always seen it as that, and several people that have read it have said they could picture it as a movie. So I think it would definitely be. I think it would definitely make a great movie. As far as a series, I guess it could be broken up into that as well. But it would be cool to me to see it on the big screen.
Do you have a dream cast?
I've thought about several different ones, but I've never really fully decided on anyone in particular. Um, so it would be an interesting task to find somebody, but I haven't really thought about exactly who I would want for sure.
Yes. So, Little Man Big Treasures, if you give five adjectives, what are they?
I would say, it's exciting. It's informative. I would say it's family friendly. It's action packed, and let's see another adjective. I would say it's fun. It's a lot of fun. So,
Yes, lots of fun, people. So, Little Man Big Treasure is the first book of your trilogy.
that's correct.
So, what will be the second book?
The second book is called The Summoner's Gem.
Little Man Big Treasures. What else you can say about it?
Yeah, so like I said, I think it's something that will be interesting for the whole family. You can read it yourself and pass it on to your kid, and they can pass it on to their sibling or friend, or you can give it to your grandma. It's something I think it's appealing for everybody. It's available in paperback on Amazon, and then it's available as an ebook at most of the ebook retailers. It's also available on Audible as an audiobook and iTunes as an audiobook. It's narrated by a guy named Simon Mater. He was a voice actor. He did a great job with it, as far as I'm concerned. I thought he did a great job with the story flow and bringing the characters to life. So if you like audiobooks, you can get it that way. It's relatively cheap as far as ebooks go. It's not really expensive. So I think it would be worth anybody's time. Um, you can Google Little Men Big Treasures, or you can go to jrobertsholt.com and click on books, and that'll uh, give you a link directly to everywhere that you can purchase it. And that's about it.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. J. Edwards Holt because if you support him, more books to come. So, Little Man Big Treasures, do you think this will be a timeless novel?
I think so. Yes. It's set in sort of a timeless period. It's almost medieval. It's kind of mythical. I think it's set in a time that no matter how far along we get, I think people will be able to look back and kind of relate to it.
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Holt, what is a quality of a book for you? A good book for you?
For me, it's I like books that are fun and engaging. Because I've never liked to read anything that was too boring or too I guess too textbook or something. I always like to read something that was fun. And so for me, it when I'm reading a book, I like to read something that's fun, that brings me in and makes me feel like I'm a part of the book.
So, do you think that all your novels is considered as lots of fun?
Fun, Yeah, fun. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, definitely.
This influence you for doing that writing?
Just growing up, loving uh, movies and books and games and all those kind of things. Just looking at those and thinking, I want to make my own story someday, and just doing a lot of research on world building and how to craft a story, and just learning it over the years. Um, yeah, learning over time.
Yes, very well said, Mr. Holt. And can you please again invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Absolutely, you can find all my books. You can Google J. Edwards Holt, or you can go to jedwardsholt.com and click on books, and it'll have a list of everything I've written so far. And anything new I come out with will be added to the list. And if anybody wants to keep up with what I'm doing on social media, you can follow me there. Most of my profiles are at J. Edwards Holt. And yeah, that's about it.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Edward Holt. And thank you, listen notes, for my latest scores of listen score of 25 and 10% popular show globally. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Holt, catch you next week. Moricon people, see you soon.